So I played the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo again this morning, and I am super impressed. I am really looking forward to this game. Now, Final Fantasy VII is a game that is near and dear to my heart. So this video is going to be a Storytime video. So let's get into this. Welcome, folks. I'm Joe from joeThinks. And today I want to talk about Final Fantasy VII and how it has actually played a role in my life in the past. But first I'm going to talk a little bit about the Final Fantasy series in general. Now, the Final Fantasy series, one of the staples of the game series is that each game is different. It takes place in a different world. It has different concepts and themes that are going on inside of it. However, there are some things that are mainstays in every single game. For a long time there, Moogles were, which are little flying cat people, and Chocobos, which are birds that are ridden like horses. And then there's usually airships and someone named Sid, and magic in some way, shape, or form. It has traditionally, in the past, been medieval meets magic style. And one of the things that Final Fantasy VII introduced into the franchise was like a sci-fi concept. It introduced modern ideas. Like there could be cars and bigger cities and large corporations and stuff like that, which just didn't happen in the Final Fantasy games that came before it. Now, as I said, Final Fantasy VII holds a special place in my heart. And it was directly related to some of my life choices growing up. Now, this story actually begins way back in 1996 during the summer. Reading about E3 and what was happening, I was playing Super Mario RPG with all of my friends on our Super Nintendos. We were loving it. Square, before Square and Enix would merge, which was just Squaresoft at the time, was a mainstay for the Nintendo system. Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy VI, which was actually Final Fantasy III in America. And then there's Final Fantasy V, which we never saw in America until the PlayStation days later, when Square would stop working with Nintendo. We'll kind of get into that here, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. The big thing was the Nintendo 64 was shown at the E3. It was like the second E3 as well, to like age myself. But there wasn't a Final Fantasy game. There wasn't a role-playing game at all for it. It would be like 2 years before the Nintendo 64 would even get a role-playing game, and let's not even talk about Quest 64, because many of us agree that doesn't really even count, you know. But there would be no role-playing games on the Nintendo 64. Square repeatedly gave Nintendo, allegedly, advice on how to build their next-gen system to support their needs that were growing. And Nintendo decided that they would champion cartridges living on, and they didn't. The entire industry moved forward to CDs. That wasn't even a question anymore for anyone but Nintendo. Then the rumors were no longer rumors. Final Fantasy was going to be on the PlayStation. Final Fantasy VII was going to be on the PlayStation and not on a Nintendo system. So I bought a PlayStation. I bought a PlayStation that could play Japanese games as well as American games. Through this neat place that used to exist called Game Cave, which there were ads for in some of the video game magazines. The big concern back then was that the video game industry may collapse, as it did back in the 80s. The console wars might end up revealing that there's only so much money in the video game industry, and there would be way too much money that had gone into it, not enough that had come out, and a little bubble would happen. Boop. Now, they did have a lot of price wars during this time, too, to kind of help with that whole ideology. And everybody gives Sega a hard time for changing their prices around then, but that may have helped the industry as a whole. So again, if the industry were to collapse, Final Fantasy VII would be like Final Fantasy V. It would never come to America. And once the industry got stronger again, maybe Final Fantasy VIII would come to America. So it was during this summer that I decided I needed to learn Japanese. Now, at this point in my life, I'm a teenager, and I have been in special needs class my entire life going to school. I had a hard time reading and writing. Even though I, at this point, was reading and writing role-playing games with my friends, and my favorite authors were Stephen King and Michael Crichton. But in school, I couldn't perform. So you can imagine, when I went to my caseload worker, my special needs caseload worker, and I said that I wanted to enroll in Japanese class. His response was, "Why would I put you in Japanese when you keep failing English every single year?" So at first I was devastated. The reality set in. I went to a local internet cafe that was available here back then. You could sit down at a computer, use their dial-up, and search forums and stuff, and I found a Japanese material. I knew how to use a web crawler back then. The problem was I couldn't really work it out with an English to Japanese dictionary as well. Short things made sense, but a lot of it didn't. It became clear to me that I wasn't going to be able to learn it on my own, or it was going to take a long time. Now, my mother took notice of my disappointment during this time, and she got involved. First, she went and spoke with my caseload worker, but she got the same result, and then she went above his head. Eventually, my mom and I ended up in front of the school board, who asked for a bunch of tests to be performed. I truly applied myself to these tests. I was told how important they were for making this decision, and darn it, I was going to play Final Fantasy VII, even if it was only in Japanese. So I did their 3 or 4 different tests, and then afterwards they asked me to take a really long test again. And the results of those tests changed my life forever. I was taken out of special needs classes and assigned to have a permanent study hall. An hour of my day at school where I did my homework and I applied myself to things. I was told that I was in the top 1% of people of my age for the IQ test that I had taken twice. And with my counselor and therapist involved, it was determined that I just was not applying myself. I valued what I did outside of school more and would not do homework. The interesting thing was I was then aware of that and I could work on it. Many doors opened up in my life because I wanted to do something that at first I truly felt I wasn't able to do. And of course, I needed help to get there, and my mom was the vehicle of that. Hi, Ma. So now that the Final Fantasy VII remake is truly happening and is actually going to become a reality, I can't help but think of those times, struggling to understand what was being said. I had a humongous notebook that I kept, where I had literally gone and translated everything that was being said from Japanese to English as best as I could. And the more that I learned, because I did ultimately get into the Japanese classes, I made some lifelong friends in those Japanese classes. But the struggle to get there was very real. So now that we'll get to see an Advent Children, the movie for Final Fantasy VII style cast, and it doesn't bother me at all that the city of Midgard, the futuristic city, that you could barely explore anything of. I mean, on the PlayStation, Final Fantasy VII had all 3D pre-rendered backgrounds with very select pathing of where your characters could actually go and how far away or close to the camera they would be as an indicator to make those polygons bigger and smaller. I mean, that was super sophisticated technology back then. And today, they are promising us, and we will soon see, you can basically explore the vast majority of Midgard. Give us 99 levels worth to explore. I'm super cool with that. And then start part 2 with chocobo breeding right off the bat. Bam! And we get to Junin, the whole Junin experience, which is this great big giant cannon city that is also controlled by Shinra, the same corporation that controls Midgard in part 1 of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So I, again, am super looking forward to this game, and you can expect that I will continue to make Final Fantasy VII Remake related content. I have at least 2 more videos in the pipe that are related to this. And if you like this, definitely hit the like button and leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this. And if you want me to make anything specific, thinking about just doing character portraits, I'm actually working on a new art style right now. And that's mainly what this is. It's a borderless style, as I call it, digital art style I'm working on for comic that I can also do, obviously, this stuff with too, and it's real fun. So if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be able to hit that bell, which will notify you when I release videos. So you just, bam, oh, he definitely posted it. It's Sunday, that kind of thing. And remember, be kind to one another. And use your turn signals.